This is a recording for 3C. The 7 Habits of Highly Efficient Cult Leaders. Article 1. Grooming. Your appearance must be polished, at least at first. Only later in your cult's development may you degenerate into bad hygiene. But be warned, if you go natural too early in your cult's development, you will just be smelly. It will destroy your cult in its infancy. It was November 18th, 1978, and cult leader Jim Jones needed to convince over 900 of his followers that they needed to die. As members of the People's Temple Church were forced to drink cyanide-laced punch, they screamed, wept, and argued. Slowly, they began to die. Throughout the history of the world, power-hungry people have continued to pry on the desperate kids and unfulfilled patrons of society in order to feed their own personal agendas. Although cult leaders and members may think that they are changing their lives and drastically improving the world, these organizations do have a strange tendency of crashing and burning eventually, most likely due to very illegal activity, possibly including, but not limited to, child marriages, unregistered firearms, and/or death Kool-Aid? Ew. So is using the articles Jonestown Radio Network from History.com, Waco Siege from History.com, Life as a 14-year-old Manson Girl from History.com, The 7 Habits of Highly Efficient Cult Leaders from The Satirists, and Nation About Due for Big Cult Suicide from The Onion all illustrate the true nature of these harmful societies. And Cultivating Catastrophe, a program, because nobody deserves that level of psychological torment. Well, it's less of a question of if, but when. You say, because we know there are cults out there, and if you think about it, what I would do if I were some crazy, demented, charismatic guru with an insatiable thirst for power and teenage girls, is I would rent out a condo in, say, Pocatello, Idaho, gather a few desperate unemployed locals, give them all a handful of sedatives and a tiny little plastic bag tied around their necks, and convince them all to ascend with me to Star Headquarters 46298 before the next pre-numeral lunar eclipse. It's fast, it's simple, and it might even solve a lot of their problems. Was February 13th, 1993. And some 80 members of the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms raided a religious compound at Mount Carmel near Waco, Texas, after reports that the Branch Davidians and their leader David Koresh had violated multiple federal firearm regulations. Well, that's basically like suicide, you know. If a group decides to take part in a standoff with the federal government over their right to stockpile illegal weapons and forcibly marry a child or two, sure, we could easily chalk that up to group suicide, no problem. 1967 was the summer of love. But in sunny Southern California, something sinister was brewing. There, in the desert foothills of the Santa Susana Mountains, cult leader Charles Manson was establishing his polygamous commune, in which he prophesied that he was the second coming of Christ, the Beatles were his prophets, and that a violent race war was imminent. 2 years later, in the summer of 1969, the group's collective psychosis reached its macabre peak, with Manson family members slaying 7 people over the course of 2 nights. Well, the FBI offered few specificities on how these suicides are likely to take place. They did not by any means rule out self-immolation, cult members ingesting cyanide at the behest of their leaders, and or just chopping their balls off or whatever. But during the summer of love, Diane Lake didn't want to spill blood. She just wanted an invitation. Anywhere. To the party. Communes were on the rise, there was lots of free love and I'm lost flooding the streets, but the counterculture didn't exactly have a place for a sexually active 14-year-old. Meaning Diane was jailbait. Article 2. Strength. It is wise to be physically stronger than everyone else in your cult. This gives you the appearance of vitality and makes others look up to you. It is also helpful in the case that you are, for example, unmasked as a fraud and must defend yourself from hordes of crazy cult members. In this case, it would also be helpful to keep your followers on a low-protein diet. Very low. This will affect both their cognitive abilities and their muscle mass. To the Branch Davidians, David Koresh was the lamb. the only one, according to the Seven Seals, capable of unlocking the rest of the Bible and revealing it to the entirety of the world. However, this identification gave him an excuse for some of his more controversial practices, including taking multiple spiritual wives, some as young as 11 years old. Article 3. Fellowship. Crisis is a fellowship by secluding small things as if they are a big deal. Nothing creates a sense of community more than gelatin desserts. You should stock up on crackers as well. Diane Lake recalls 10 to 15 Manson family members settling into the commune lifestyle at Span Ranch. The daily activities of Manson's cult members included owning horses and renting them out for rides, partaking in drugs, and most importantly, late afternoons with Manson doing whatever he pleased, which often included group orgies, which were very methodically done. Lake recalls that Manson would first hand out LSD like it was a sacrament, then order people into groups, and instruct them to take off their clothes in a circle. All very traumatizing for Lake, who was just only 14 years old. Article 4. Creating aura. Creating aura isn't difficult once you understand your target demographic. You see, to work with a countercultural cult, you should ideally grow your hair long. But if you are working within the more traditional Christian tradition, cut it short. Make it big and poofy in the televangelical style, but not long. Eyebrows are also crucial. They say eyes are the windows to the soul, which means that your eyebrows are the curtains to the drama absolutely raging in your eyes. Absolutely overdeveloped eyebrow muscles are crucial for browbeating skeptics into submission and otherwise mesmerizing followers with their intensity. Physique. For a countercultural cult, you should ideally be either very thin, the emancipated wise man, or very well built, again proving your immortal essence. But I do digress, even portly individuals can run cults. But this is often due to your followers' subconscious associations between you and the Buddha. You should encourage these comparisons. Jones circulated a message to Jonestown headquarters. He told them that you are going to meet Mr. Fraser, his code for death. In a later transmission, Amos relayed back to Jones that the group had nothing to commit suicide with. But her answer soon came back in more code. K, N, I. The transmission was cut off, but Amos knew what she was to do. Her and others were supposed to use knives to kill themselves, and everyone at headquarters. She tried to get them to follow through, but they backed. So Amos ran to the kitchen, collected a butcher's knife and her 3 children, 22-year-old Leanne, 10-year-old Krista, and 9-year-old Mike, and took them to the bathroom, where she would first slit the throats of her 2 youngest children as they screamed in pain as the woman they trusted most to keep them safe took the life out of their precious small bodies. She then moved on to her eldest and later herself. Only 9 Branch Davidians survived the Waco siege. Later, 76 bodies were found on the compound, 26 of which were children, all showing signs of murder or murder-suicide. After the Manson family murders, family members were rounded up and taken to prison. Months later, Diane told investigators her true name and age and was moved to a mental facility. Now 65 and having worked in special education for the rest of her life, she claims that she has been lucky to live such an interesting reality. It is, in our opinion, that some fringe organization in the United States is operating somewhere very illegally. I mean, it's been, 10, 12 years since the last group suicide? Too long. Eventually, in the next few days, we're going to be turning on the news and thinking, wow, those people are nuts. Thank you.